This is Brent Richardson, and welcome to the Business Minutia Podcast, where our focus is on the details of business that are often passed over by traditional classes and leadership training. We focus on the stories of real people who have tried, failed, and learned through their experiences and are willing to share their lessons with others. All right, Jamie, we have got the great Ken Janke on for a second time. The first episode that we'd recorded, one of the first episodes we'd rolled out for the podcast, was one of the most popular of last year.
Yeah, it blew up.
We're big in Africa and in all kinds of European places.
International reach.
Because this guy's reach is quite impressive.
Right.
And that's because he has just spent most of his life helping people.
Yeah, for the last 20 years, he's been helping people figure out their why and helping people figure out where they're trying to get.
And so why are we talking about this? When we talk about New Year's resolutions, and usually this time of year people are kicking off some change, something new, they're going to say, I'm going to do this new thing. This is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. One of the things that we learned from working with Ken, we had the opportunity to partner with Ken on a nonprofit that we both volunteer with, where we were doing the same. We were jumping straight into what and how, and had the opportunity to sync up with Ken, who was able to challenge us that we need to be thinking about why first.
Right, and the assumption is that everyone has the same why. But if it's never been verbalized, it's never been agreed upon, then your assumption is probably not right.
And that's what we discovered, right? And it was very valuable. So I think it's good when you're talking about any kind of change you're trying to implement. You're like, all right, I'm going to, whether it's exercise or a weight loss or a job situation or whatever you're trying to change.
Right, and whether it's personal or if it's in a group or anything, family.
Right. Aligning on the purpose of what you're trying to do this for, and then getting into the how and the what. It's really valuable, and Ken is such a great facilitator of these kinds of conversations. It's an abstract thing that's hard to describe for people what you're going to get out of this, but man, I'd be shocked if you're not challenged by it.
Yeah, and Ken is available for hire. He does this as a career, and he is available for nonprofits. He's available for individuals. He's available for businesses, companies. Whoever would like to hire him will have all of his contact information at the bottom.
And if you have a team that you're in the process of thinking about some changes, rolling some changes out, I highly recommend, give this a think and then maybe reach out to Ken and see if it'd be a good fit to have him partner with you.
Right. He uses a concept called the Golden Circle, but we'll let him describe what that is.
Yep. Enjoy, folks.
Just so that the listener can understand the golden circle process, I want you to think in terms of three concentric circles. The outer circle is the what. Yeah. So, and again, the what is basically what you're going to do to support your core belief about yourself, and that's where framing your values and your cause and building your controlling idea is really critical. Because if you don't know what you want to contribute, then you'll never actually move forward. Yeah. So the first step is the what. Then the second step is the how. So if I know what I want to do, then I can start to think about the how. And this is how the work will be fulfilled that supports your core belief, right? So what, how, and then the last one, and this is the one I think most people completely skip. And that is why.
Yeah.
So what, how, why. Yeah. Why is the center.
Yeah.
And the why, this is the core belief of your work. It's why the work exists.
Yeah. And I think we just assume that, well, everybody knows why we're doing it. It's just a good cause. It's blah. No, I think as we started to talk about it, you realize different people have different takes on why.
That's exactly right.
And then you realize, all right, we did not get alignment on this. We just started running.
That's it. And then once you know the why, then you can go back and restate the what you're going to do to support that why.
Yeah.
And how you're going to go about delivering that why.
Well, and the how very much changes as you get alignment on the why. That was my other discovery. And then that's the reason I thought, okay, I think this is probably the case even with our businesses and even with our careers. with our career development. If we're talking about resolutions and bringing about change and transformation for 2021, most of us would like to forget 2020.
That's it.
And do something different here, right? But as we start to think about what are we going to change, how are we going to do things differently, I found this to be a valuable process to think through about, okay, why? Okay, how, what, going through that. So maybe take us through how the process that you typically would take someone through that's listening right now, that they're at that crossroads right now. They say, okay, I need to change. I need to change. I'm in this transformation space. I'm ready to, I've dieted. We're in week 2, week 3 of the year. They've dieted 2 weeks. They're about to bail on this thing. Okay, so we need to give them a little bit of inspiration too, but give them some idea of what kind of process. How can we help them think through this kind? I like this idea of the boundaries of creating lanes for yourself so that you wind up someplace on purpose as opposed to just bouncing around in the wilderness.
Absolutely. I think thinking of your life as a boundaried field is really helpful. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of us, especially our world today, we don't want to be bounded. We want margin. We don't want any margins. We want to just live outside the lines. And to be honest with you, that's when life gets really dangerous. Mm-hmm. I think that when we know the margins, we know the boundaries that we're supposed to live within, it helps. It helps us be more focused and actually land, as you said, land on purpose. And so the intentionality becomes, okay, who am I? And what is it that I want to see transformed? Sometimes those kinds of questions come out of a sense of urgency. So I always like to ask people, why do you want to do why are you feeling this urgency to bring about change in your life?
Yeah.
And oftentimes that begins to reveal some of the hidden motivations behind this journey that they're wanting to start. When it comes to resolutions, most people's resolutions, as you said a minute ago, are around, I want to lose some weight or whatever it may be. But here we're talking about career, we're talking about life. I think it's really important that before you jump in feet first into change, that you need to understand some things about yourself. And so helping yourself to identify what are your values, mm-hmm. and framing those values, and then what is it that I'm most passionate about? One of the things that I think often happens is people, for whatever reason, often we don't see fully ourselves. And so sometimes we don't even know the greatest treasure that we carry within ourselves. And we need friends, we need to be with others who can help us see what it is that we bring that actually brings juice to the moment, that actually lights things up.
Sure.
And so in that moment, when you're thinking about what do you want to do, what do you want to change, how do you enter into this, I really encourage people to get around a couple of friends and say, tell me what do I bring to you? What's the contribution? I'm gonna go back to that language.
Right.
What is the contribution that when I show up, you see that I bring to you?
Yeah.
It's amazing what you might find when you ask that question.
Right.
So that would be a starting point.
Yeah, certainly. We're talking about self-awareness.
Right.
Right. We're
Absolutely.
talking about understanding where what we bring to the table, where our strengths are, and not diving off into spaces where I'm going to be a pilot next year. Well, unless that's really maybe that's a passion that you have, but setting some boundaries in general might be a good thing. So once I have that established, maybe I have a decent idea, and I think you're right. If you're not self-aware, one of the great ways is it's hard to see for yourself. You've got to get some third party in there. Right? But once I get to that spot, what's my next step in terms of the process that you take people through?
I think
if I know what my value is, I know that. Right.
Yep, right. So I think a lot of times people have a tendency to think that now that I know, my value and my sense of purpose, they still look at their jobs and their vocation as something they do.
Yeah.
And I would like to just kind of reframe our thinking about our work, because I think the people that are the most fulfilled in life, in their work or their vocation, are people that are actually don't see it as work. You know, I remember my dad when I was a young boy growing up, and he'd say, we'd have these conversations. What do you want to do? What do you want to be when you grow up? And I remember my dad used to always say, whatever you do, son, make sure you love it. You know, he'd say, I don't mind what you do as long as you love doing it, because then it'll never feel like work,
Yeah.
right? That's really what he was trying to say. But what that's happened for me is I want to help people see their work not as something they do, but as the person they are, right? So can I bring to my work, you know, oftentimes our desire to shift jobs or change our work is just we're frustrated. Mm-hmm. This isn't working. I'm not on the trajectory that I want to be on. And it could be that you are in the wrong job and you actually do need to change. You know, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. But what if it's just that you aren't actually showing up authentically as the real you?
Yeah.
To do the work that you were hired to do. And so it's out of that frustration that my New Year's resolution, I want to change my job. Actually, maybe it'd be better to discover who you are and what you bring and show up. It's less about the work you do and more about who you are in that job.
Sure. Yeah, and I could see how, you know, if I was a resolution person and I was setting out on a goal to change my career trajectory, I would expect, at least for me, I would start with a self-imposed boundary and an assumption that I didn't even think about, which would be where I'm at in the organization I'm in, at my current employer, and I would look at things through that lens and in that context. My goals for this year are based on those assumptions. And what I hear you saying is, well, let's abstract that a little bit more.
Right.
Take the job and the current situation away, and then start thinking about how do you fulfill the passion and the value.
Absolutely.
How do you apply your passion and your value wherever you are, in any context? And then you can come back after that and look through your current work situation through that lens.
Yes.
Yeah.
So a lot of times employers will do job performance interviews, or they'll, you know, every year we're going to do a 365-degree evaluation, and you're going to get feedback on how you've done. And that can, you know, help you determine, are you doing well? Are you doing bad? Should I look for another job? Right. And one of the things that I've been talking with employers and employees about is this idea of, what if instead of doing the evaluations, actually the employee drove forward their own objectives for the work that they do. If you make it clear what the job is, then if I'm the guy doing it, I can create objectives for that work. And another way of thinking about objectives is the what you want to accomplish, right? So I need to be asking, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish as an objective to fulfill my job portfolio of responsibility, right? So I need to have objectives, and I need to have key results, which is the how I'm going to accomplish my objectives. And so if you could train yourself to work in such a way where you created your own objectives along with key results, so objectives being what I want to accomplish, simply one or two things. It's the what I want. In everyone's life, you control the story or the narrative that you want to live. And at the end of the day, a story is a character, you, who wants something. The problem is most of us can't articulate what we want.
Yeah.
So go back to the situation at work and say, what is it that I want? If you can accomplish and clearly articulate what it is, then you've set objectives. An employer who has an employee who knows the objectives they're after, and they actually have put together, 2 or 3 key results, the how, that are measurable, they're quantifiable to accomplish that objective, that employee doesn't need an annual review. Actually, they just need your help to help them move things out of the way so that they drive productivity and fruitfulness. Yeah. Now listen, if we could live from a place where we understood who we were self-aware, and we actually knew what our objectives and our key results were, oh my gosh, we'd be an unstoppable force. Now, if you can arrange those objectives and those key results around identity and self-awareness, and we stopped looking at the grass on the other side of the fence, or we stopped measuring ourselves against other people and just were content to say, this is me, and I'm going to bring the best me to accomplish my objectives and my key results, we would have fruitful, productive, and happy people in the world. I really do believe that.
So do you think, I agree. I think for me, the times when I've struggled in my career, usually I could point back and say, I don't know what I wanted.
Yeah, that's exactly
right. And
right.
I've had senior leaders just challenge me, what do you want? And I don't have good answers. And then the response is basically, well, you're going to sit right there in a corner until you figure it out. And I've had plenty of time in a penalty box and in corners.
Or be shown the door.
Or be shown the door. Yeah, I agree, right? So I guess my question would then be, what's the order of these things that a person should attack? So is it what first and then work? Because it does seem kind of a cyclical process, right? Because at least that was my experience when you were taking us through it. We just bypassed why, right? Like we talked about. And so we got into, we were able to articulate what pretty effectively in that case. But I think a lot of us in our personal lives probably maybe that seems to be the spot to start for my own career, is to have that conversation with myself, try to capture it, make sure that's written down, whether it's just, I just want to be twice as wealthy as I am right now at the end of the year, whatever it is. I think capturing that, I think that is a healthy thing. Yeah. And then do you jump to why?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
The first step is the why.
Okay, that's where I was going.
It is absolutely true. It's the why. And that, again, just to state it again, the why is the core belief that you have about yourself and about why you exist.
Right.
And why you get up in the morning and why you do the work that you do. The why is why you exist, in a sense. And so if we don't know that, and that's why I was starting out by saying you got to know what your value is, and you got to know what your cause is to frame a sense of who you are. And that's why talking with others and saying, when I show up, what do you see in me? What do I bring? Because oftentimes we can't see it ourselves.
Yeah.
And then once you understand the contribution that you bring and the value that you bring to others, you begin to understand the why, and you begin to put 2 and 2 together, and you start putting one foot in front of the other, and you start walking into your future.
Yeah.
So the why is the first part. It's the one that most people skip.
Yeah.
We go to what, we go to how we're going to do that. So I think it's the why is the first step and the most important step. If you get the why, then you go back to what I'm going to do. So why do I do? Why do I show up? Why do I exist? Why? And then, okay, because of this, what then do I do?
And I think a lot of us probably think we know it, and so we just kind of skip it.
Exactly.
Right. And so that leads me to my next question, which is, as you're taking people in teams and groups of people through this process, what's the most common mistakes? What's the most common issues? Is beyond just skipping the steps, which has been pretty painfully clear. And is it different for personnel, for individuals compared to teams?
Absolutely. I mean, for an individual, it really is about being woke,
Yeah.
Most people are asleep.
Yeah.
We haven't done the
Not culturally woke.
Yeah.
Awake, you mean?
yeah. I mean, like woke to themselves.
Yeah.
Like who
Right.
who am I?
Right. So it seems like the biggest hurdle from a personal perspective in this is self-reflection, is self-awareness.
Exactly.
Like if you don't know who you are,
Right.
it's really difficult to go create any kind of change for yourself.
Absolutely.
Right. I think you're just it's hope as a strategy. It's just like let's let the wind decide where things will go.
Absolutely.
If you don't know.
One of the things that I like to do with people, most of the time we have a tendency to think about our mission in life as, again, what we do. And that's not necessarily wrong, but I find it helpful to walk people through an exercise. And the exercise is this. First, I want to help them understand their vision. Now, vision is, think of, I'm wearing glasses today because I need glasses to see. So I see things through lenses. So what are the lenses that I'm looking through? And so one of the things that I ask people to do is to close their eyes so they can't see anything. So now they're in a dark reality. And I say, I want you to describe what you can see with your imagination. What you can see, again, vision is also about future. It's not about what you see right now. We're sitting in a room. I can look around the room and describe different things that I see. But now close my eyes and project into the future. Describe for me what you can see, because only you can see that.
Sure.
That's what's beautiful about it, because then it starts to be aware. You start to become aware of what I see. Mm-hmm. Then I go to the question, okay, now that you've described what you see, you now need to ask yourself, go back to that future landscape and describe for me what you're doing on that future landscape. Mm-hmm. That helps you get to your cause.
Sure.
It helps you get to the work that gets you excited. And then you start describing it.
Yeah.
Now, when you can do that, you're beginning to project forward into the future what it is that I value and what it is that I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And then you start to find language for that, because like I tell people all the time, I do this kind of work, but I could do this kind of work pumping gas at a gas station. I could do this kind of work. You pick it.
Yeah.
Because it's not what I do.
Yeah.
It's how I show up with.
And why.
And
yeah,
why.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, why I show up. Exactly.
Right. And then the details of where it applies is kind of plug and play.
Amen.
Or can be adjustable.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's good. I think too many times, at least for me, I'm too focused on the surroundings.
Yes.
And I'm just looking right around me. And even when I'm not, I'm looking, I will still project. I'll project out for that surrounding.
Yes.
In this surrounding, in this environment, this is what this looks like. And you have these self-imposed boundaries that you're bringing in. You're not even thinking about it. It's just, subconsciously you're creating that there. And I think the more you can abstract yourself
out of that.
Yeah, from your employer, from all of those things. And I that's probably also, I was talking to somebody last week about how early in my career I had these, you ever had these cases where you had those friends and then you have these friends and they're different friends and you don't want to mix them.
Right.
Because for whatever reason, it's just really uncomfortable because you don't feel like you're the same with all of them. And I think over the span of my life, I've been able to integrate those pieces together, and that is so much better. I don't know why it is. I just feel whole.
Yes.
To be able to integrate those pieces together, and I think if I can zoom out and be the same person in all places, right? And that it's not about who I am with my employer, it's not about who I am with these friends and these friends, but who am I in general, and then apply them in all aspects of my life. I just am happier.
And the truth is that you'll find favor, you'll find promotion, and you'll find wealth doing that because it's who you are. It's way you're wired up. It's you showing up with the wealth of value that you bring to every situation.
Yeah. I think you just start working like a well-oiled machine instead of just creating friction in your own engine.
There you go.
You just wind up fighting everywhere, and it's just not efficient, right? And I think that was my motivation. I got tired of trying to watch my back and look over my shoulder with who was around me. I'm not going to be that way. I just need to be the same person across the board. I do think there's a correlation there with our sense of purpose and our sense of why we're doing what we're doing, and we're really talking about creating kind of I like this idea of lanes, the kind of your lane of vision and mission for who you are and what you're trying to accomplish. And I think, at least for me, too often I'm narrowed in on. Again, we're talking about the individual personal cases. I want to get to the team aspect in a second, but when I'm so zeroed in on these are my boundaries, if I'll zoom out, I realize those boundaries are subconsciously probably wrong, self-imposed, and if I'll take those away and start fresh, I probably uncover new options and new things for myself that I didn't anticipate.
That's it.
Yeah, I agree. So talk to me a little bit about the team aspect, because you take a lot of teams through this. How is it different in those cases? What are the common pitfalls and mistakes that folks have that you see make there?
Yeah, well, I think like most teams, it's not. Most people have a tendency to not think about their work as personal. It's I'm fulfilling that guy, or this overarching missional statement that this organization that pays me wants me to do. So and so part of this journey is I always talk to organizations about, you want your team to be invested in your mission, your values, and the why of what you're doing, because then they get to bring the best of them to fulfilling that why.
Right.
And so, sometimes it's having to go back the first process with an organization and ask them to allow the team to unravel what they believe is the why behind the work that they're doing. Let me tell you what, that exposes a whole lot.
Right.
I've seen owners and operators of businesses sitting in the room during this process and listening to their team try to identify, why are we doing what we do, and realize that nobody in the room even knows why. And so all of a sudden they start discovering the why, and all of a sudden the next thing that happens is actually a new company is birthed almost. I'm not saying literally. I'm just saying that people start to...
The transformation starts to occur.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The transformation starts to happen.
That was certainly the case with our team as we were going through this, and we realized we had different whys, and we started to align on a why. And it was a little bit different than I think what we originally targeted. Just to be, we're talking, kind of beating around the bush on this. Maybe I'll be a little more tangible for listeners. We were talking about the legacy projects that we work on, which in our minds were all about, there are these places on the planet where there are need. And we were partnering to go fill those needs. And it was largely financial, but we also go put our fingers and our hands on it, and it was great. It's just, and we build this community of people who want to go have that impact. But in our mind, the why was all about achieving some specific objective at that location. It was about the place of need. And I think as we got together and talked about it, we realized actually the why was more about us coming together in community to go impact that change. And that you could replace the need area, but you couldn't replace the community. Right. That became the part, I think, that was our learning. And so I think you're spot on that there's as we started to have those conversations, the transformation starts to occur. And we were like, okay, we need to go back to the drawing board a little bit and tweak these things. And I'm glad we did it when we did, because if you're 3 years in, the change is harder.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So better to get it now and be thinking about getting alignment on this. Something you mentioned there really resonated with me too, Ken, in the sense that I've had a lot of conversations this past year about empowerment with people, about empowering employees to take ownership in projects and in work and things like this. And I think there are cases and times where I don't need empowerment. I just need you to do what I tell you to, right? That's more of a dictation style of leadership, but that's not my DNA. I prefer an empowered approach. I prefer, I want folks thinking, I want them using 100% of who they are. And the dictation process does not get that out of people typically, right? That's been my experience. I don't get as happy an employee. Sometimes it's more efficient. I think the dictation process can be more efficient. Ideally, I'd like to see I want the most out of that employee, and I want them thinking and contributing at the highest levels that they can. And I think what you're talking about, if they don't understand why we're doing what we're doing, you're not going to get that.
That's exactly right. I actually like to use two words together: empowerment and capacity building. Reason I bring capacity building to the table is that most of us don't take the time to build capacity in ourselves, let alone in if we're leading a team, in our team. And part of that is helping them understand the why, the what, and the how behind the work that we're doing. It starts also then, that's where they feel empowered. But then capacity building is helping them understand who they are and inviting them to be authentic and bringing what they bring.
Sure.
So there's capacity building and there's an empowerment. And an employee or a team member who understands their capacity.
Yeah.
Or their contribution.
Yeah, you mean what is their capacity to how do they plug in
exactly.
to that overall why statement?
Right.
What's their capability and how they connect in with the overall team?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And when that happens, when they've built capacity, you can empower them. You can hand it over and watch it run because everybody knows what all the arrows, another way of saying it, all the arrows are pointing in the same direction.
Yeah. I think it's the best path, and in terms of leadership and management, it's the great lazy manager solution.
Yeah.
It really is, right? Do you want to sit there and micromanage people all the time? I don't have time for this.
And nobody wants to be micromanaged.
Nobody wants that, right? I'd rather have you empowered to be able to go run with the ball, understand the direction we're trying to go, and use your skills as best possible. Or also challenge me when I'm telling you, hey, this is what I'd like you to go do. It's like, I'm not good at that. Wouldn't this person be better? That's not a conversation that happens if you don't go through a process that's like this. If you don't understand why we're trying to accomplish and understand what your strengths are, then you're just a really inefficient system.
Absolutely. And when you think about innovation happens when you bring multifaceted perspectives to work on the situation of the project, right?
Right.
Because typically what we do is when we dictate things or we want to drive things a certain way instead of helping to build capacity and empowering people to move forward, is you miss all of the perspective that's setting in the room. And when you get people looking at something from different perspectives, you actually innovate.
Yeah.
You actually improve the surroundings and the situation.
Yeah.
So, you can't have innovation unless you're willing to empower and help people build capacity for their work.
Which is a great example of the value of diversity.
Absolutely.
It really is. I mean, that's when I think you start to see, all right, diversity is not just something that we put on things to make it look politically correct. This is the value. Without it, you can still innovate, but it's going to be, it won't be what it could be.
Right.
You're going to miss things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can you give us a little bit of an example? How often should somebody, how often should folks be rethinking this?
Well, I think here's the interesting answer to that question is, for me, once I did the hard work of becoming aware of my values and my cause, again, transformation and stewarding dreams. And I actually wrote my controlling idea for myself. I have not had to go back and redesign. In fact, I use that as a way to keep me focused and moving forward. I've been offered jobs. I've been offered positions. I've been invited to come to do this, that, or the other thing. And I've looked at that and thought, you know what? That I can't bring my true, authentic self to that. So that's outside of the boundaries of how I want to live and how I want to show up. I don't want to violate and try to contribute something that I'm not. So I think once you do the hard work, actually the decision process of choosing what you do gets really easy.
Yeah.
Because you use that kind of as a filtering way of evaluating opportunity or decisions. And it takes out that, wow, that's shiny over there. I like that. No, well, yeah, it may be shiny, but you're going to be miserable because that's not you.
Right.
And you're going to get frustrated because you don't have what's necessary to actually make that sustainable.
Yeah.
We might be able to do it for a little while. And that's part of the reason why resolutions are frustrating and are hollow.
Yeah.
Is because really what we're doing is we like that shiny thing over there. We want to go over there and do it, and then we start doing it, but we realize, I don't have the sustainability to see this through because I actually don't have what that requires because I wasn't aware. And it violates the why in my own self.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that once you've established the why and the what, you can reevaluate this on the fly all the time because those boundaries are helping you evaluate what you should and shouldn't be tackling, which is really a lot of the how, right? How should I be applying my kind of purpose and goal for life?
Sure.
What is my mission and my vision? How you apply that it's always adjusting.
Absolutely.
Like that makes sense to me. I don't know how many times I've told people, like, I know we're going to win. I don't know how yet. We're going to sort that out as we go. That has to be flexible. I need plenty of room for redemption in the how.
Yeah.
Right. But the why and the what may change on occasion, because I think that may go year by year, project by project, and my goal might be on the what side. I want to accomplish this, and but the why I think is probably not changing that frequently.
That's it.
That why should be fairly, and I agree. I think if you establish the general idea, it does prevent you from. It helps you stay in your lane.
It does, and it helps you to make commitments. And
Or say no.
Or say, yeah.
Yeah.
And how many times have you met somebody who can't commit to a no?
All the time.
And it drives you crazy.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
it's tough. Yeah.
And it's hard on them too.
Yeah, and it reflects itself in all kinds of ways. All you see is the person's just not executing.
Right.
They're just not getting things done, and then you realize I had this really great engineer that would do this where, he would struggle with not getting things done, and I was trying to understand. And I knew the person was outrageously talented and had a track record of success, and had to figure out what is the problem with all of a sudden we're having issues. And he happened to be sitting across from someone that was constantly in his office, and he couldn't say no. And they would lean on him because he was an expert. And then once we realized, all right, we have a no problem. Okay, well, let's find a way to firewall you a little bit and protect you, right? But I think in that case, once we line up on here's the objective and here's why we're doing this, then you can create some boundaries and try to help prevent yourself from being distracted.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. That's good, Ken. Any other thoughts, resources you'd recommend for people who are going through this kind of transformation at the beginning of the year here?
Can I just throw this thought out to
Yep.
them?
Go ahead.
So one of the things, Brent, that I think is important that people understand when they're trying to think in terms of who they are is that we all have abilities. The question is it achieved ability or received ability? Because there's two different ways that we get the ability that we have. Achieved ability is ability you have developed through learning and practice. And it's good to identify those things because that helps you to understand more about who you are. But there's also this received ability. And received ability is that ability that was gifted to you. It's in you. It's innate into who you are.
Yeah.
And that's the part that I think most of us struggle to understand.
Yeah.
But I think it's really, really important. So I would encourage people in the journey to discover their abilities so that they know what they bring is to do the homework to explore not only your achieved ability, but your received ability.
Folks, hope you enjoyed. If you have interest to follow up with Ken and reach out to him, we will have information on how to contact him on our website. Just find this particular episode and we'll have links down there of how to reach out to him, and encourage you to do so. And if there's an opportunity to get into greater detail on the process and the kind of what he talks about, I assure you it gets way more specific with your
Right.
particular case and problem.
Absolutely.
For your team, if that makes sense. Feel free to do so. Have a good week, folks.